AITAH for not offering to care for my unwell ex-husband? Posted by you/visible_yesterday_62. Throwaway account. I, 56F, have been married to my wife Angela, 56F, for a year, and we're planning our first anniversary celebration with a trip overseas. I was very excited to spend this time with my wife, but unfortunately, my ex-husband Dan, 58M, was recently hospitalized, which is putting a damper on my plans. Backstory: I met Dan in college, and we got married shortly after graduating when we found out that I was pregnant. At the time, it felt like the right thing to do, but looking back, it was a bad idea. I resented having to put my career aspirations on hold in order to be the full-time caregiver, and Dan resented having to be the main financial provider. However, this did not stop him from constantly bringing it up whenever I asked him to help with the kids or the home. He also never defended me when his mother would stop by, unannounced, and the household wasn't up to the Queen's standard. I felt so exhausted and trapped, and if it weren't for my kids Junior, 34M, Sarah, 32F, Michelle, 29F, and Mike, 29M, I would have left years ago. Unfortunately, Dan did not have the same values as me, and he blindsided me with divorce papers. It was a rough process, but after the first year of our divorce being finalized, I got my groove back. Within the next 4 years, I was able to get a nice apartment and a good career. Present day: a couple of weeks ago, Dan was rushed to the hospital. While the doctors were able to save him, his health took a turn for the worse. His wife is now essentially working to provide for their kids, while her parents watch them to save on daycare. I learned all of this through my children, as I do not care to have any direct contact with Dan, but almost every time I talk to them, they always bring up how stressed and tired they are over having to look after their father. I thought I was just being a sympathetic ear, but a couple of days ago, my children came together to confront me about my lack of willingness to offer assistance to their father, and as their mother, I should want to care for him to make their own lives easier. My children know that while I have a full-time job, I can make up my own hours, and they want me to come into his house at least twice a week to make sure he's clean and fed, or pay for a nurse to come do it. I refused, stating that Dan and I have been divorced for years, and that their stepmom can handle that. That's when they told me that she didn't care about their dad like they do, and is most likely hoping for him to pass so she can collect on his insurance policy as the legal wife. My daughter Sarah then began to cry and asked me if I cared whether or not she had a dad anymore, while Junior and Mike thought that I was being bitter. Michelle asked me to put them first and said that I can reschedule my anniversary trip with Angela. My former in-laws are also calling me to say that I need to do this, and that I'd be a horrible mom. Am I the jerk? Top/relevant comments. Commenter: not the jerk. Turn this completely around and ask your children how long you were supposed to put your life on hold, and are you never allowed to be happy and live your life? Tell your children that between the 4 of them and your ex-in-laws, they can split the costs of a hired nurse, healthcare professional, or domestic aid to go to your father's house twice a week. Why should you pay for his care? You don't have the bandwidth and mental strength to be their father's carer. And it's really manipulative and cruel of them to emotionally coerce you to become your ex's carer. Ops response: Dan's parents are retired and rely on him to pay their bills. I'm told that Dan's wife freaked out at the mention of having his parents move in to help save money, and his mom's mobility isn't great, so it's not like she can do all the cooking and cleaning. Also, my kids have student loans, and most of them are parents themselves, so money is tight for them. To hire a good domestic aid, they said that they don't have the money, and that's why they're currently taking turns, but it's getting to be a lot for them. Up to another commenter: my in-laws think I baby-trapped their precious baby boy because I didn't want to work, so they were happy when he left me. They felt as if he deserved better and accused one of my children of not being his because they didn't look enough like him. Up to another commenter: we're Americans, and our healthcare system is terrible, worse if you don't have money. I was told that, since my ex made too much money in the past 4 years, he doesn't qualify for assistance. Up to another commenter: technically, he did have a girlfriend a week after moving out of the house, but he ended up leaving her, never married, for his current wife. His current wife was also born within the same decade as our children. Up to another commenter: from what I am told, she moved him out of their shared bed, doesn't help him with his medication, takes the food to his room but won't cut it up into small pieces so it's easier for him to eat, and leaves it on the other side of the room to motivate him to move. She doesn't take him to his appointments, and unless my children, usually my daughters, come by, he's not kept very clean. My children say that Dan has limited mobility and can't verbally communicate like he once did at the moment, but the doctors are hopeful that he'll be able to regain most of his functions if they stick to the plan. The only thing I have to go on is what my children are telling me that they've personally witnessed. Up to another commenter: right now my kids are taking turns caring for him, but they all live about 40 minutes to an hour away, while I live about 20 minutes. I don't speak to Dan, so I didn't have his address. Most of my kids have children of their own, and their partners aren't happy about their lack of effort with their own kids for a currently undetermined amount of time. My children are bringing him food and feeding him, giving him his medication, and making sure he's clean and taking him to his appointments. At least that's what they tell me. Angela and I have no kids at home, and we're both earning good money. I do have a lot more time and disposable income, which is why my children want or expect me to help. Also, if I'm being honest, I don't think I can entirely blame them because I had a people-pleaser mentality. That's taken me a few years of therapy to unlearn, so I feel like that's where my kids get their entitlement from when it comes to me. Update 2 months 2 weeks later. I forgot the password to this account, and my stepdaughter showed me what to do. Once I accessed this, I saw that I got a few messages from people asking for an update, so I thought I'd share. First, a few people seem to be confused, so let me be clear, I am a woman who is married to another woman. My own parents passed away years ago, so their opinion is irrelevant. My wife and I both have children from previous relationships, but we didn't meet until after our children were adults, so my wife and I are the only ones who have lived together. Now on to what almost everyone else cares about the most. I went on a cruise. It was great, and my wife and I had a really great time. My children were predictably unhappy, and I'm sure that my temporary blocking of them didn't make it better. Most of my children kept calling and telling me that I was a selfish and awful woman for choosing to go on the vacation instead of being there for the family, but, like many of you have stated, I reminded them that their father divorced me, and therefore my obligations to him ended. If it were any of them that had a medical need, I would cancel without question, but I would not for their father. I thought I could leave it at that, but because they kept calling and texting the first 3 days of the trip, that's when I decided to block. Unfortunately, my ex's health took a turn for the worse, and he had to go back to the hospital, and his lack of proper care triggered an investigation. I didn't know any of this until I unblocked my kids the day I got back, and some of them blamed me. I've come to the conclusion that they're all just mad at the situation, and I'm a convenient villain. I've accepted this because I can understand the fear and anger of facing the idea of losing a parent that you love. I just hope that one day we can all sit down with a family therapist and mediate the situation. However, this did start to trigger my past tendencies of sacrificing my own happiness and well-being for my children, but my wife, therapist, and even a small piece of my inner self had to remind me that my children are adults, and that my ex isn't my responsibility. I tried to reach out, and so far most of my children aren't talking to me and have made it very clear that I will not be able to see my grandchildren as a punishment. It's sad, and I'm still wrestling with the guilt and doubt, but my wife and stepchildren are being very supportive, while my other family is a mix, and most of my friends are neutral. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Let's be real here, up. Your friends aren't neutral. They think you should have stepped up for your ex, not because of any past familial obligation, but because you are a woman, and as a woman, you shouldn't let people suffer that way. Which is total BS, by the way. You are divorced and now married to someone else. That someone else is 1000% your priority now, not the ex. And as for your children withholding the grands, let them. Sometimes you gotta take the collateral even when you aren't the one causing the damage. Just remember, when your kids want something from you, don't give it to them. They have set the tone from here on in. Resonate that tone right back at them. Edit to add, I hope you enjoyed the majority of your cruise with your significant other. You deserve it. Commenter 2. Not the jerk. I'm surprised at the number of people posting similar stories. Why isn't it okay for women to move on and be happy after they were the ones who did everything for the house, children, and spouse, had to sacrifice their own mental and physical health, were cheated on, and then dumped? Ex made his bed, and if his kids and family are so concerned, they can step in and be there. Ops response. I've actually spoken to many different people about this, and we all agree it's due to the societal belief and expectation that all women are nurturers, and that we are supposed to be caretakers. That all women need to take care of everyone else but ourselves. Anything outside of that is considered selfish. Commenter 3. Info, why don't the kids take care of their dad if they care? Ask them, why don't they take care of him if they're so concerned? Ops response. I stated this in the comments of the original post, but my kids all have families and full jobs of their own, and they live about 45 minutes to an hour away. They initially started to take turns, but they said that they're all exhausted and are starting to feel the pressure from their spouses about not being home. My ex's wife is now working full-time and says she has her hands full with their own 2 kids. My ex had 2 kids with her, so she's not in a position to give him the care he needs, and she won't allow money to be spent on a home care nurse. I live much closer. I didn't realize this when my wife and I moved in because I didn't know my ex's address at the time, and I have a job where I can make up my own schedule, so my kids wanted me to come around and help my ex. Commenter 4. So, what you're saying is that all of them are putting themselves first. They're not coming together with a plan to help your ex. For instance, they could all have chipped in to pay the home care nurse. Also, forgive me if I'm coming in too strong. If his current wife is neglecting him, and he's getting worse, health-wise, your kids would have grounds to take the caregiving away from her. See, if this was my father, I would be pushing for a power of attorney to make decisions about his health, his care, and his finances. Ops response. Also, forgive me if I'm coming in too strong. If his current wife is neglecting him, and he's getting worse, health-wise, your kids would have grounds to take the caregiving away from her. I think that is what the investigation is for. Commenter 5. What's wild is, he's not even their responsibility. Sure, it's a wonderful thing when kids take care of their aging parents, but they don't owe it to them. Their father might have fared better had he thought about someone else's happiness for once. But instead, he divorced a woman who loved him and was willing to stick it out through the tough times, and found a new wife who doesn't care about him. He's living the life he chose. Period. Ops response. But instead, he divorced a woman who loved him and was willing to stick it out through the tough times, and found a new wife who doesn't care about him. I think you're giving me too much credit. In the beginning of our relationship, I can say that I did love him, but at my place in life now and looking back, I was never actually in love with him. I actually wanted to divorce him for a while, but I was willing to wait until all the kids were adults, while he wasn't. If he had major health problems while within our marriage, I would have done things differently than what his current wife is doing, but I feel like I'd grow to resent him. Especially with his mom around to criticize everything that I was doing. Second update 4 months later. I hope everyone reading this had a wonderful holiday and will have a great new year. For anyone who has been following my drama-filled and emotionally taxing life, I have another update for anyone who cares. Update: this year it was my wife and my turn to host, and since this past November was rough for us and her side of the family, we decided to go all out with a bigger tree, decorations, planned out activities and meals, etc. Also, as the adults, we decided to do a secret gift giver where we pull names out of a hat. This year I got my stepdaughter Megan, 24F, a sweater that I made by hand, but it was terrible, so I decided to make it a gag gift with a gift card to something she actually liked. On the actual day of, my wife and I woke up, had our breakfast, gave each other our spouse gift, and then got ready for everyone else. It was Megan, Miranda, 34F, Miranda's husband, Jack, 34M, the grandkids, 8F and 5F, and a couple of others. None of the guests were my children with their families. It was sad but not unexpected, and I think people could sense that because the kids were extra affectionate with me. We played board games, ate, did crafts, talked, watched movies, and opened gifts. It was nice. When there was a moment, Miranda pulled me off to the side and asked me to adopt her. I don't want to go into the details, but Miranda's father was never active in her life and hasn't spoken to her in about 3 years. She said that with the coming year, if something were to happen, she wouldn't want a man she barely knows to have the power to make medical decisions for her if Jack or my wife are unable to. She and Jack know that if anything were to happen, I wouldn't let my wife raise the grandkids alone. This had taken me by complete surprise. I cried while graciously accepting, and then we made the announcement. We're going to start the legal process in a week, but the kids have already switched to calling me a grandma type of name. We took and posted pictures, and since I knew I was blocked, I didn't expect my children to see. Apparently, they did. They're all upset with me and unblocked me just to let me know. My children feel that it's weird to do an adult adoption, that it's disrespectful to announce it on social media, and how hurtful it is that I made Megan a sweater but never made a thing for them. I stopped crocheting when my grandma, the one who taught me, passed away when I was a teen, and I just never had the spare time when my children were kids. I tried to call to explain, but I was blocked again. However, my daughter-in-law, Junior's wife, sent me a message with some info. My children are mad that I got Miranda's kids presents but not my real grandkids. They think I'm replacing them all with my wife's family, that I'm selfish, and how they can't believe that I never once tried to reach out to them to see the grandkids. I wanted to reach out, but I thought it would be less harmful for me and them if I didn't force contact. Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Congratulations on formally gaining a daughter. Your children are very entitled, unreasonable, and illogical. They quit talking to you. They cut you off from your grandchildren. They blocked you? And now they're mad you didn't reach out to them, when they blocked you, and that you didn't buy their children gifts, even though they cut you off from them. Good for you, not giving in to them. After rereading your posts, It seems to me if you'd reached out and bought gifts, they'd be mad that you ignored their boundaries. They tried to put you between a rock and a hard place, thinking you'd cave to their demands. Since you haven't caved on anything, they're furious about everything, but don't know what to do next to get you to respond. Commenter 2. Adult adoption is not weird. My grandma did it for both my uncles, who were not her biological sons, when they were all in their 50s or 60s. I think it's sweet, and congratulations. Your kids may or may not ever come around, but I hope they eventually do for everyone's sake. Third update 5 months 2 weeks later. I, 56F, have come across a new problem in my life, and my wife, 56F, thinks that coming here will either help in getting another perspective or give me validation. I have 4 children that I birthed and raised, 35M, 32F, 29M, and 29F, by my ex-husband, and they all recently decided to cut me out of their lives as I refused to care for their father. I refused on the basis that he and I divorced over 10 years ago, and they feel like I should help take care of him as a favor to them. I've stuck by my decision and chose to go on a cruise with my wife instead of caring for their dad, and they haven't spoken to me directly since. Right now, the only way I'd be able to see my children or grandchildren would be if I physically went to their house and forced my way in. But I don't want to be that person. I'll admit it hasn't been easy and I miss them, but I, my wife, and therapist all agree that if I give in, then I'm just showing that I'll cave to their demands every time, as they've made it very clear it's either I care for their father nearly every day or nothing. I don't want to do that, especially since my ex-husband and I didn't divorce on good terms. Recently, my eldest son's wife Kate, 34F, reached out to me and said that she had an emergency, asked if I wanted to see my grandchildren Emma, 9F, and Kyle, 6M, and I obviously agreed. At the time, I was under the impression that my son was aware, and since I was still blocked, I didn't think to reach out and check with him. Kate dropped the kids off and I had a nice time with the kids. Kate came back a few hours later and asked me if I could watch the kids again, and when I asked about how my son felt, she told me that while he was still angry, he was fine and to just contact her if there were any problems. Unfortunately, Kate was lying, and I found out about this when my son came to my house furious. Apparently, Kate and he had been having problems since November, and she started looking for lawyers after my son told her to quit her part-time job, stop going to school online, and be a stay-at-home mom, while also working on baby number 3. Kate stated that my son has been doing things to sabotage her, and I'm sad to say that some of the things she has said track with my son. His father was the same. My son stopped payment for daycare. Kate's nearest relative lives about an hour away, and any friend that she would trust to look after her kids and who were willing are also friends with my son and refused to get involved. I was not happy about being lied to, but I can't find myself to be too angry because I got to see 2 of my grandkids. I admit that it's very selfish, but I agreed to keep taking the kids for her in exchange that she not lie to me and understand that if my son comes for the kids, I can't/won't keep them from him. I've also agreed to pay for the summer daycare program for the kids so they have something fun to do, and my son is predictably not happy with me. My kids have unblocked me, but only to say that I'm a traitor and how terrible of a person I am. It hurts, but my wife feels that providing a safe and fun place for the grandkids comes first, so I have to ask, am I the jerk? Top/relevant comments. Commenter. Wow, your son is the jerk here. I mean, him stopping to pay for daycare isn't just hurting his wife, it's hurting his kids. He sounds like he doesn't give a crap about his kids. This is an abusive relationship. I hope Kate gets out quickly. If your son is just like your ex, then I can see why you divorced him. Not the jerk. Ops response. I'm definitely not happy that my son chose to stop paying for daycare before discussing it with his wife and demanding, expecting her to be a stay-at-home mom, but I feel like I can't be too upset because of how I raised him. In my own childhood, I was taught to believe that a mother must always sacrifice for her children and never prioritize your own happiness and desires before the kids. Some people in my and my ex-husband's family think that if a woman can stay home with her kids, then she should, and that a mom can always get a job when the kids are an adult. My ex and I put this mentality in all of our children's minds through our words and actions over the years, so it's another reason why I feel like I'm a jerk. Downvoted commenter 2. You're the jerk. You have been clear that your son's wife has previously lied outright to you about your son knowing his kids were with you. Why on earth would you believe anything else she says about your son? She's out to screw him over, and you are helping her. You have zero proof anything she says is true, and you do have evidence she is a liar. Why would you not verify before getting involved and acting against your son without a clear understanding of both sides? It appears you will align yourself with anyone who gives you the time of day, so long as you can interfere in your kids' lives in a negative way. To believe a proven liar without confirming your son's position makes you a complete jerk. I clearly understand why your kids want nothing to do with you. Op's response: why on earth would you believe anything else she says about your son? Because when I asked him, he either confirmed or didn't deny anything that Kate said. Not to mention, she showed me texts, and my son is tragically showing the same form of behavior his father did to me. I do love my son, but that doesn't mean I'm going to pretend he's perfect and can do no wrong. Op adds an edit to her post. Since more than one person brought up a good point, I just wanted to be clear. When I found out that Kate was initially lying, I didn't just take what she said as her reasonings as the whole truth. I did ask my son, and he either admitted it or didn't deny the accusation. Kate also showed me text messages, both in the form of screenshots and just handing me her phone. My son is also tragically displaying a lot of the same behaviors as my ex. Also, my ex does have a wife, and from when I last spoke to my children about it, they said that she wasn't doing a good job. Although I haven't spoken to her directly, I don't feel the need, and I also think that that's being too nosy. For more details, my ex and my kids wanting me to take care of him, I believe you can go to my profile and see the post I made about it months ago on another forum. Fourth update 7 months later. Happy holidays! I made this post a while ago, and because I still get update requests, I decided to post an update. To get to the main points, over the summer I paid for my son's children to go to summer camp during the day so Kate would have some free time to get her affairs in order, and I offered to look after them. My son, however, went to the camp and told the people there that he didn't consent to the kids being there, so their spots were taken. My grandchildren were really upset because it was a nice camp, and it had a lot of fun activities for them to do. My son basically just didn't give a crap because his goal was to essentially use them to keep Kate at home. He also threatened to call the cops if they ever went to my place, so Kate essentially just left the kids with my son and told him to figure out what to do with them, and she made sure to let the kids know that my son was the reason why they couldn't go to the camp. When they met with the lawyers, my son tried to claim abandonment on Kate's part, but she showed proof that my son interfered with my grandchildren's activities while offering no alternative. While the divorce was going on, Kate got my son to agree, in writing, that he would allow them to have summer activities, and using my own wife's connections, my grandchildren were able to get into another summer program for the last month of summer, and they had a nice time. Kate has her own place and a new and better paying job, and she has allowed me to FaceTime and see my grandchildren from time to time, and it was nice. My children have now completely unblocked, but I had to block them because they would only call to berate and harass me, and even started to cause trouble for my wife and my respective jobs. We ended up having to send an official legal notice to get them to stop. It's also draining and upsetting, but my wife and stepchildren are really getting me through all of this. It's not perfect, but I'm happier now than I was while married to my ex-husband. Also, I heard through Kate that while the worst part of my ex's health issues is over, he's now permanently in a less than ideal state. He was also secretly spending thousands of dollars on OF accounts, which is one of the reasons why his current wife was so upset, and that it was actually one of my daughters who called Adult Social Services to file a complaint. The investigation ended without any fault being found with my ex's wife, and that my ex was just simply refusing to put in the work to get better. Top/relevant comments. Commenter: so sorry you have to deal with all that. Your son is a huge douchebag. He screwed up his own kid's summer just to mess with his ex. Good on Kate for making him pay for it. Your children all suck. Just write them all off and spend time with your stepkids and Kate and her family. Good luck. Op's response: thank you. I'm honestly really struggling with this issue between my children and me because I don't think they would really be as bad if I hadn't raised them to believe that a good mother is always selfless and never puts anything before her biological children. I'm staying firm with my boundaries, but I hope one day we're all able to sit down and talk. Preferably with a professional, neutral party to help mediate. Op to another commenter: they're aware of Kate's side of the story, but they're choosing to believe their brother over her and feel like she's over-exaggerating, as well as being a bad mom for not putting the children first.